out, running Y Combinator, running a different startup before that, and now running OpenAI and a number of things. Just help us understand how you came to where you are right now.
Yeah, so I started at Stanford, where we met, and I was already in love with computer science, but I really fell in love with it once I got there. I actually went to study AI, but at the time AI was really not working at all. In fact, very memorably, one of my professors said, the only sure way to have a bad career in AI is to work on neural networks. We've decided those don't work. And so I got kind of discouraged, and I started a company. That was a great experience. The company didn't work out that well, but I kind of learned about startups and thought they were a very powerful force and something I was very excited about. So I then ran YC for a while. And while I was doing that, got newly excited about the idea of startups that take on hard technical challenges. And I sort of thought it was curious to me more people weren't doing that. It seemed like a really valuable opportunity. With some other people, started OpenAI as one of those examples, and many other things which have gone on to be pretty exciting, but really fell in love with OpenAI. Once it seemed clear that we were really going to have a chance at making true general purpose AI, like a system that could do what a human can do and contribute new knowledge to society, I got really excited and wanted to go work on that. And so stopped being an investor, and now I do that.
Amazing. So first of all, what is OpenAI? Is it just ChatGPT? Are they the same thing? Are they different? Just help us understand what the company does.
We are a company that is doing research and deployment to try to figure out how to build AGI and how to responsibly deploy that into the world for maximum benefit. So this is unlike other technologies. Well, other technologies are like this too, but this is a strong case of a technology that on the one hand is the most exciting, most promising, coolest thing I think that humanity will have yet built. We can cure all disease, we can give everybody a great education, better healthcare, massively increased productivity, huge scientific discovery, all of these wonderful things, and we want to make sure that people get that benefit. That benefit is distributed equitably. And on the other hand, there are the obvious concerns about the power of this technology used in a negative direction. And so we want to be a force to help manage those risks so that we all get to enjoy the benefits. ChatGPT is definitely what we're best known for, so I guess they're sort of synonymous at this point, but OpenAI is really about this quest for AGI.
Interesting. So help us understand, I mean, all of us have played with it, right? We have poems getting written by it. We've all asked it fun trivia questions to learn answers. But help us understand, you know, without a doubt, have a better understanding of how it's getting used all around the world in all sorts of different industries, vocations, reasons. Talk to us a little bit about some of the most interesting things that you've seen. Like, for example, what's the most surprising use case of some of the technologies that you guys have built that you've seen recently?
So the main thing I would say that's interesting about it is its generality. There's a lot of other systems that can go do this thing well or that thing well or this thing, and you know, in many cases better than ChatGPT. Some not. Like, there's probably not a AI that can write a better poem or whatever, but you know, other categories you could find something that's maybe better. But the fact that this one system is truly general purpose and can do so many things means that people are integrating it into their workflow as a very powerful tool. And so the same thing that can help you write computer code, one of the areas that we've seen the biggest impact is what coders are using this for, doubling, tripling their productivity. You know, there was a paper that just came out that when Italy temporarily banned ChatGPT, developer productivity fell in half on a fairly big study. But it can do that. It can also, you know, help you find information. It can help you write a poem. It can help you summarize documents. It can translate things. And people are using this, which we hoped would happen, as this sort of super assistant that just makes them more and more productive. And it's that generality that I think is the coolest part.
So with so much ability that maybe even you guys haven't even thought about how people are using it when you developed it and launched it, I'm sure you've seen a lot of interesting use cases right here out of India itself. Can you tell us something, or just give us an example of something you've seen that's really inspired you, that you've seen come out of the Indian market?
So India has been a country that has really, truly embraced ChatGPT. In a way, maybe you can tell me why. I'm sort of curious. I'm hoping to learn while I'm here. We're very delighted. But there has been a lot of early adoption and real enthusiasm from the users. One of the very earliest things, like in the first weeks of launching ChatGPT, we heard about a farmer in India who wasn't able to access government services, and via like ChatGPT hooked up to WhatsApp in some sort of complicated way, was then able to. And that was like one of the early things where we're like, we did not think that was going to happen.
And just to expand on it, so what I've understood about OpenAI is ChatGPT is one implementation of the things you've built, but you have capabilities to real-time translate, to transcribe audio into text, and are you seeing people use these in combination in ways that are surprising?
Well, we recently launched an iPhone app that has speech recognition in it, that's hooking up two of our models together, and people love that. But the main point that I would like to get across is none of the current systems really matter. Like, we're going to look back at GPT-4, and I don't know if any of you have like picked up the original iPhone in recent years, but it's like, wow, I cannot believe we were excited about this. Each pixel's like that big. It just feels like this like incredibly antiquated thing. The curve here is going to be much, much steeper. And what the systems are going to be capable of in the not distant future, we think, is going to be very dramatically different. So this is like a system that I don't even know what this is like the old first like grayscale Nokia phone that looked like a little candy bar. And the iPhone 14 is coming. So what I would say is it's a mistake to get too focused on the current systems, their limitations, their capabilities, the impact they're having. The thing that matters here is we are on an exponential curve, truly. Two big miracles, I think, in the field. Number one, we have an algorithm that can genuinely, truly, like no tricks, learn. And number two, it gets predictably better with scale. And that, we're going to look back, I think, on those two realizations as a turning point in human history when you put them together. But what it means is that the rate of progress in the coming years, the capabilities are going to be significant. So it's totally cool that ChatGPT can write that poem. When a future system can like cure all disease or help us address climate change or radically improve education or make us all like 10 or 100 times more productive at what we do, that's quite impactful.
It's amazing. Now, let's flip to the other side of this, because there's no doubt there's incredible power in this technology, and with that comes challenges. I want to play a clip. Maybe you guys can put on a clip of something I recently heard Sam speak somewhere, and we can talk about it a bit. Could you play the clip, please?
Hi, my name is Sam, and I'm happy to be here today. Thank you all for joining. I also wanted to say that the gentleman on stage with me is incredibly good looking. And I also want to say that you should be very careful with videos generated with artificial intelligence technology.
Okay, so you didn't say that recently. Clearly that was just a ploy here, and thank you, by the way. It was very
totally agree with that part.
But nonetheless, I think it raises a real question, right? When this video, if you look closely, you can see the lips aren't perfectly synced, but like you said, this stuff is only going to get better and exponentially better. Fundamental questions are on authenticity. What's real and what's fake? How do we handle that?
Yeah, so that was like deeply in the uncanny valley. It's very strange to watch, but we're not that far away from something that looks perfect. And there's a lot of fear right now about the impact this is going to have on elections and on our society and how we ever trust media that we see. I have some fear there, but I think we're actually going to, when it comes to like a video like that, I think as a society we're going to rise to the occasion. We're going to learn very quickly that we don't trust videos unless we trust the sort of provenance. We'll have techniques like watermarking detectors. More than that, I suspect at some point, if people are saying something really important, they'll cryptographically sign it. And web browsers or phones or whatever will build in some ability to say, okay, this is authentic. But that part we can all adapt to. Like, we did this with Photoshop. There was a period of time where people thought if you see an image, it's got to be real. We learned, we're like, okay, that thing is Photoshopped. It happened quickly. Videos like that, society will build antibodies quickly. But there's a related thing that I think is getting discussed less, which is not the ability to generate mass media like that, but customized, one-on-one interactive persuasion. And I think people are going to be able to create AIs that are very good at this. So it won't just be like, you know, I'm watching a video of you, but it'll be like I'm chatting with you back and forth, and it's like the most interesting, compelling conversation that I've ever had that's like affecting me in ways that I don't know about. And that's a new thing. That's different than just generated media. Again, I think we'll find a way to build societal antibodies to it, but I don't think it's discussed as much, and it's going to be a challenge.
I also want to talk about jobs, because the natural fear is AI is going to make us redundant, particularly in markets like India, where we have so much of a workforce, and a lot of it is oftentimes doing somewhat rote work. Should we be worried about this? I mean, does this affect societal disruption on employment and capitalism and all the things and how we've been running?
I mean, to some extent, yes. Every technological revolution leads to job change, and this will be no exception. I guess 3 thoughts. Number 1, job change itself is fine. You know, if you kind of look at the history of this, in 2 generations, we can kind of adapt to any amount of labor market change. And there's new jobs, and the new jobs are usually better. And that's going to happen here, too. Some jobs will go away. There will be new, better jobs. They're difficult to imagine as we sit here and dream about what the future is going to look like. The thing that might be different about this is the speed with which it could happen. And I think it will require a change to the socioeconomic contract and the way governments think about this if it happens at a very fast pace. The second thing is it's not going the way people predicted so far, and I don't think it will in the future. So the current systems are actually not very good at all at doing whole jobs. They're very good at doing tasks. And so the nature of the job, if you're, say, a computer programmer, to stick with that example, shifts to you kind of like manage a team of extremely, extremely junior developers that can only do one-minute task at a time. And then someday they'll do 10-minute tasks, and then they'll do an hour task. But you'll still have to think of like, how is this all going to fit together, what I want to build, and you know, maybe eventually it learns that too. But this idea that instead of replacing jobs, it's making people dramatically more efficient, and there is such a demand overhang in most places. You know, if we can overnight make the world create 3x more software because we make every software developer 3 times more efficient, that is not nearly enough. That does not nearly fulfill the demand the world has for software, and I think we'll see that in many other places. So another example of this is that the consensus, not the consensus, the like absolute belief of experts around the world 10 years ago. First, AI is going to come replace the physical labor jobs, so truck drivers, farmers, factory workers, real trouble. Then it'll come for the sort of easier kinds of cognitive labor. Then maybe eventually like computer programmers, even a mathematician. And then, you know, way in the future, or maybe never, because maybe it's like magical and human, the creative jobs. And of course we can look now and say it appears like it's going exactly the other direction. But that was like really non-obvious, certainly to us. We started thinking we were going to build robots. And it's still, in some deep sense to me, seems like it should be much easier to make robots than it is to make GPT-4. But here we are. I think with other job impacts, it's just going to be surprising. But I think the world will get way wealthier. We'll have a productivity boom, and we will find a lot of new things to do.
You talked about robots, and you know, we've talked about sort of the real practical likely disruption that we're going to see because of AI. But we also have to talk about that 1% like extinction risk, or that robots are going to come and take over our lives. How do you think about that? I mean, you have actually been probably more so than the average person cautious about this. And for us, we kind of think of it as sci-fi, kind of like in the realm of not really realistic, but interesting to talk about. But I think you would say it's something real that we have to think about. Help me understand
for sure.
it.
Like, I want to be super clear. I don't think current systems are dangerous. I don't think there's any way that GPT-4 like causes an existential risk to the world. But people are very bad at thinking about exponential curves. And GPT-10 may be a extremely different thing. Given the importance of getting this right, even if it's a 1% chance, I think putting a lot of effort into thinking studying like how we align an AGI, how we design safe systems at this kind of scale, is super important. And starting that early is really good. I think we can totally manage through it. I think we're developing techniques to mitigate it. This is really why we started the company. This was like our initial focus and still is our most important focus. But yeah, we need to address this.
So is there like a power switch in the back of your office that nobody knows about where you can
It's
just
like that
pull,
thing in
you can,
Jurassic Park, that giant.
yeah, it has to be big and dramatic, but you pull this big
Right.
thing and it shuts down all the systems if we need it?
Exactly like that.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I feel better now. Okay, and it works even if you're traveling, right? I mean, yeah, okay. Anyways, so let's talk about regulation because, again, I think what's really unusual is this company is a few years old, but really for the consumer, it's like less than a year old because of ChatGPT. And yet here you are traveling the world, meeting leaders globally to talk about the importance of regulation. And not only are you doing that, you are probably one of the most vocal people saying we need it. And not one of those, we'll regulate ourselves, leave us alone type of things. You are saying governments need to step up, understand this, and get involved. This is very weird. This is not like how most startups operate. What's going on?
Well, again, we started the company because we were nervous about AGI risk before people even talked about AGI. And now I think part of the reason we deploy systems is so that people confront the technology, feel it, understand the risks, the benefits, and now a lot of other people are also very excited but sharing the concern. I think this is a special moment where the globe can come together and kind of get this right, and we certainly would like to try to do that.
So let's talk a little bit more about AI in India, because it's so unique for us, and there's so many interesting use cases that are very India-specific. One of the obvious questions we think a lot about are languages. Right? India has one of the largest depths of languages, hundreds of languages in the country. Now, AI is by and large trained on what's publicly available, what's available on most of the internet, which is, inevitably going to be mostly English, probably a lot more Western focused in terms of just the sheer quantity of stuff that goes into training. How do you think about biases? How do you think about inclusivity? How do you think about multilingual countries like India and making a product that's relevant, that's useful, not just for all of us fancy people sitting in Bombay and Delhi, but for everyone in the mass of the country?
Yeah, it's super important to us. We had a big step forward from GPT 3.5 to 4 at non-English languages. So GPT-4 is pretty good at, say, the top 20 languages and okay at maybe the top 100. We will be able to push this much further. It's challenging for us for very small languages spoken by only a few tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. That's difficult. But the systems are fundamentally going to be very good at this, I think, and it's important for us to do. Now, as you were saying, it's not just the language, it's also the history, the culture, the values, and we want the entire world represented in here. There will be some areas where the world's got to agree on, like, here are the sort of global bounds of the system. But mostly, if you want to use it in the US or in India, that can be under a different legal framework, and then in different parts of the culture in each place, it'll be very different. And I think that should all be represented in there. We recently launched a new program to give out grants for people that want to run experiments of the ways we can do this, the way we can collect this, but we really, really want to.
India has been particularly unique and successful globally at building a lot of the underlying technology stacks to support new innovation in digital with India Stack, UPI, Aadhaar, things like this. Do you think India should build its own LLM, AGI, AI engine? In some sense, should we think of this a little bit like nuclear technology, where every country should be building its own capabilities and, a little bit more nationalist in the way we think about this? I mean, how do you think, as a country, we should think about AI as something in a sovereign sense?
First of all, it's super impressive to see what India has done, I think, in a way that really no other country has, with these sort of saying we're going to do national technology really well and like make it a really like a national asset. In terms of AI strategy, I think there's like a lot of things that can work. I think this question of sort of AI sovereignty, none of us have an answer to yet. Feels like it's going to be at least somewhat important. But the main thing that I think is important is figuring out how to integrate these technologies into other services. And that is an area that I think governments are behind on and don't have the answers to yet. But, I think hopefully we all start to use LLMs to make government services way better, both from how do I enroll in this program to how do I get better healthcare.
But if you're in the Indian government, should you be we need to set up a team of crack engineers to build our own OpenAI? I mean, is there a concern for us to say, are we depending on, for fundamental infrastructure, are we depending on something that's not owned by our country?
Yeah, I think it is good to have certainly some sort of AI research effort. What exactly that should do, should that be training ground up LLMs? Should that be pursuing new research directions? Should that be focused on fine-tuning open source projects? I think there's a lot of options there, and I don't yet have conviction on the right answer, but some, nationally funded AI effort feels like a good idea.
One of the things that I think is so interesting is that OpenAI straddles this line of being a nonprofit and a for-profit. And I don't know if I fully understand it. I don't know if many people do. I know you've raised money from investors, and Microsoft is definitely one of your shareholders. When we think about it, do we think of OpenAI as something that's here for society to do societal good? Is it here to make money for its shareholders? Is it both? What happens if those conflict? How do we think about that?
We're definitely here for the societal good. That's super clear, and that's why we put up with all this complication in our structure.
So what is the structure? Can you help us understand what exactly does it look like?
Yeah, so there's a nonprofit that has a board that governs this thing that we call a capped profit, where our investors can make a certain return. But if we ever need to make a decision that is in favor of societal good but not in favor of our shareholders, we're set up to do that.
Interesting. And one of the most controversial things I heard was that you don't own equity in OpenAI. Why is that? What's going on?
I mean, it started just as sort of this quirk of our structure where we needed non-conflicted people on the board who didn't have equity, a certain number of them, a certain percentage. And then I kind of just never got, I forget about it until it comes up in something like this. But I don't think it's a particularly noteworthy thing. I made a ton of money early in my career. I actively invest, so I expect to make a ton more. I get far more value from, even personally, selfishly speaking, I get far more value from all of the other sort of benefits that come from running OpenAI. I get a very interesting life than I would from more money. But most of all, I just believe that this is going to be the most important project of our time, and I'm super grateful to work on it.
If you need me to send you reminders to keep up on it, I'm happy to do that. Just let me know. Yeah. So, look, a lot of people have flown in here from all around the country to come hear you, and while understanding all this theory about AI is cool, help us do our jobs better. I wanted to put you in a couple roles and tell me, okay, you are now the CEO of a hospital in India. What should you do? And not theoretical, go hire a couple people. Help me do my job better. Be my AI for a second here.
One of the things that we have heard from a lot of doctors is that they're using ChatGPT with GPT-4 to help come up with new ideas for tricky cases. So, input the symptoms, maybe the test results, say, I can't figure this out. What are some ideas for the differential diagnosis? And in many cases, getting great results back.
Awesome. Now, let's say you're running a bank. What do you do? This is rapid fire.
No worries.
We're all taking notes to do our jobs better here, right?
Like a sort of traditional bank branch on the street, that kind of bank, not like an investment operation?
Yeah, like a bank, like a traditional bank that issues credit cards and checking accounts and all that stuff.
I think I would try to just on a very brief little side journey of my career, I once helped build a mobile banking app, and
On the side.
No, it was it would.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever. I still think the consumer experience of banking is terrible, and a lot of it could be replaced by chatting with an LLM.
That's interesting. Let's say you're running a university. You're a chancellor. I mean, we've all seen how ChatGPT can definitely affect the education experience. Now, let's say you're running a university.
Yeah, that one I think is pretty clear. I would just go redesign the education experience. I would have the equivalent of personalized tutoring, interactive textbooks. I would integrate it into like all parts of the learning process.
Now, just totally theoretically, let's say you're running like a large news media company
Real tough.
in like a market like India, like just as an example, what would you do? And let me just get my pen real quick. But yeah, what would you do? Just tell me.
One of the things that, there's been a lot of controversy about whether this is going to be good or bad for the publishing industry and news in particular. One of the things that we've heard from journalists and reporters who are actually using the product is that it helps them do the boring parts of their jobs better, and they get to spend more time reporting, talking to sources, thinking of ideas. And so I think I would just like encourage everyone to just start using it.
And now let's say you are the ministry in India responsible for overseeing technology, AI, etc. What would you do in that situation? Like, what would you be doing today as a regulator?
I would say, we have the G20 coming up. India can play like a huge role here in global conversation about what this sort of international regulatory thing might look like, and we are going to really focus on that between now and September and make sure we prioritize that.
Interesting. Can you tell us something that you haven't told other people about what's coming from OpenAI? Like maybe just some insider information that we could use in some form?
We kind of tell people what we're working on. Like, it's going to get smarter. It's going to get multimodal. We're going to try to like teach it to generate new ideas, help us like discover more new science. We're going to reduce hallucinations. We're going to give users like more control, so no one feels like it's biased, or at least it's biased in the way you want it to be biased. We don't have like a lot of secret plans here. I think always as a company, to our strength and weakness, we just sort of say what we think and what we're going to try to do.
It's amazing. Now, one of the most amazing things about you, Sam, is that you are running what is going to be one of the most impactful companies in history.
Whenever people say impactful, they leave out whether it's going to be a good or a bad impact.
That is a very purposeful leave out because we don't know, right? But you're going to shape the world with this. We know that. And this isn't your only job, as I understand, or maybe it's not your only.
It's my
full-time.
only like operating. It's the only thing that I'm like in the trenches.
Can you tell us what else you're doing that's like exciting you or motivating you outside of OpenAI?
Sure.
Like your side hustles,
sure.
if we put it that way.
I think we're going to get nuclear fusion to work in the next few years, and importantly, not just as a scientific demonstration, but as incredibly cheap energy and at global scale. So I think other than AI, if you could do one thing that would like really help the world get richer, increase the quality of life, it's very cheap energy. I think there's like a huge historical correlation there. And I think we've all like lost sight of the appropriate ambition level here of how much of an impact we could make. But if we can get fusion to work, and if we can make enough of it for the world, and if it can like cut the energy cost 10x plus, that's pretty great. I'll pick that one.
So your side gig is nuclear fusion?
I'm an investor and sort of like helper of that one.
It's amazing. So just so I understand, you're revolutionizing artificial intelligence and energy. Not you specifically, but these are like.
I think those are the two. My basic model of the world is that the cost of intelligence and the cost of energy are kind of what compounded everything else. And if we want a radically better future, those are the two things we should focus on trying to like make abundant.
It's incredible. So my last question for you is, what is the most exciting thing that you are seeing globally in your own company? Like, what is the thing that outside of everything we are all talking about and seeing that excites you about where OpenAI, or even not just AI in general, what's the most exciting thing ahead?
I mean, I think it's this generation of new scientific progress. If these systems can really contribute additional understanding of the world, better technology, better science, that is like the sustainable way that the world actually gets better and that the quality of life increases. We're not there yet. It might be soon, it might take a while, but I believe we are going to get there. And that will, I think we all underestimate that.
It's amazing. Sam, thank you so much.
Thank you.
To be clear, Sam asked me to talk less and to open it up for you all to ask more. So first, I just want to say thank you, and everyone please give him a real round of applause for coming here and being so open. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Samida, one of our technology reporters and leads, to lead maybe an open Q&A, ask her own questions as well, and by all means open it up for everybody here to take advantage of what we've got here and ask more. So please come. Thanks.
Okay, so Sam wanted. Okay, do I have a seat? Great. So Sandhini from OpenAI, if you can join us. Sandhini is from the policy team of OpenAI. Thanks, Sam. I hope you have the bandwidth to take more questions.
For sure.
So I just want to start. I want to refer to this one interview we did with you when you were in YC. And you specifically called the big tech as being hypercaps. That was something that you came up during the interview. A lot of people think OpenAI is as powerful or more than big tech today.
I don't think anyone really. That's nice of you to say. I don't.
No,
think anyone
I
really
just
thinks
come to the
that.
question.
All right.
And that's because when you propose to regulate the industry, that's also because you want to be part of writing that regulation, which makes it look like that the smaller startups and the companies which are sort of still burgeoning may not have a chance to ever become as big.
So, to be very clear, we've explicitly said there should be no regulation on smaller companies on the current open source models, that it's important to let that flourish. The only regulation we've called for is on people ourselves or bigger.
Which include? Google.
Yeah, it'd be us and Google right now, I think.
Okay.
But really just us. I think we're clearly in the lead. If it only were focused on us right now, that'd be fine. I totally get why people are skeptical of hearing someone running one of the companies in the industry call for regulation, but the governments haven't been, and we think this is important, so we have a moral duty to do it. And it's totally reasonable to ask that question, but we feel strongly about doing it.
Has there been any progress at all from...
Yeah, a lot, actually. It's been quite a good response. We've met with heads of state in many, many countries on this trip, and I have been really pleasantly surprised every single time about the nuance of not slowing down, balancing not slowing down innovation, all the positive economic benefits, everything else, and realizing that if this keeps going, it can get somewhere that does require global action. Do you have anything to add?
You want to add to that?
I think the only thing that I'll add in terms of regulation, and I think something that we've called for, is really setting standards and in a way guiding companies as to what we should be building. Because we know these technologies will impact the world and it needs to be a two-way conversation. So it really has been about kickstarting that conversation to kind of have it be a two-way street. So we're not deciding for the entire world how these technologies impact everyone.
No, I think the concern, Sam, is because usually if you've seen it for the past 15 years, regulation always follows, technology. This is the first instance where you are proposing to regulate before it's sort of, it is big, but, the percentage of people who've used ChatGPT or any of the LLM models will be very small right now. Does that dissuade smaller companies? And I think we'll open it up if you have an answer to that, then to the audience.
Yeah, again, we are explicitly saying there should not be regulation for smaller companies. I think that's important. There's got to be enough nuance in the conversation where it can't just be like, either you're a CEO that says regulation is bad, and then you are responsible for your industry being bad, or you say regulation is good, and then you're trying to do regulatory capture. If that's it, then kind of what do we want? I think what we need is companies to say what they actually believe in, not decide it. That's certainly up to the governments. But to be able to give input, in our case, we think for very powerful models that are much more powerful than what we have today, we do need global regulatory something. And if the world decides that's not what they want, that's fine. But there's nothing we've said, and in fact, we've explicitly said the opposite about anything on smaller companies.
Okay. Do you want to? There are no questions for you here.
Great.
Just in case.
Let's do it.
Yeah, these are some of the people who had sent in questions. So if we have the mic, Gaurav, Unacademy, and maybe you can just introduce yourselves as well.
So, hi, this is Gaurav from Unacademy. 5 years ago, you wrote a blog post which said that the next opportunity that you should pick should make everything else you have done look like a footnote. Now you spoke about fusion today, etc., and there are some clear big opportunities. But let's say for entrepreneurs starting out or starting their next company or something like that, and apart from the market cap or the potential or the USP, what are some traits that do you think on day one say that this opportunity can be super big and can make everything else that you have done look like a footnote?
I mean, I think this is the most exciting time to start a company since the dawn of the internet. I think this is going to be bigger than mobile. It might turn out to be bigger than the internet. I hope it does, but it's at least that big. And that means that anything you do can be huge. It's been, I think, hard to figure out what to work on, these last 10 years because there has not been a big new technology trend that's going to shake the ground. And now we have one. So, I would definitely do something in AI, but what to do, I'd pick what you like, what you believe in, make sure that the business idea has some basic defensibility to it, but it's open season and this is a tremendously exciting time.
I want to add to that. Just put on your investor hat. Is there too much of frenzy around AI? You're always critical of venture capitalists.
There is too much of a frenzy around AI in the short term. So it's wildly overhyped in the short term. People saying there's crazy stuff happening in Silicon Valley right now. But I think it's still probably underhyped in the long term. If we really do, we might be wrong. We might hit a wall anytime. But if we really do make the progress that we think we're going to make, and we have this magical system that can just do anything you ask, no one knows how to think about that. No one knows how to value that, but whatever they're thinking is too low. So it's, short-term underhyped, long-term, short-term overhyped, long-term underhyped. What do you think?
I think I definitely agree with that. I think one thing that I'd also add with AI, something that's really special now is the way it can reach millions of people across the world. Something we've seen in India is there's so much demand for things like education, and there's just not enough people who can often act as teachers, act as doctors, act as lawyers. With things like AI, all of that will slowly become more and more possible. So that's a very exciting future, and the potential is just very large there.
Yeah, to add something to that, I think we were talking earlier about what's going to happen to the jobs, but maybe the problem is we don't have nearly enough people to do all of the jobs that we want. We're in this massive crunch, and if you can make way more job doing ability available, the world would consume 100 times, 1,000 times more. I think we may really see that.
So, more questions. Rajan? Any questions? Mohit? Can we have the mic?
Hi, Sam, Rajan, here from Peak 15 Partners.
Still yesterday was Sequoia Capital.
Peak 15.
I got some questions for you.
Yeah, I know. You're on the hot seat today, not me. Sam, can you just going to startups? As you know, we've got a very vibrant startup ecosystem in India. Specifically focused on AI, are there spaces where you see, let's say, a startup from India building? You can build on the models, be it ChatGPT and many others. But if you want to build foundational models, how should we think about that? Where is it that a team from India, 3 super smart engineers with, not 100 million, but let's say 10 million, could actually build something truly substantial?
Look, the way this works is we're going to tell you it's totally hopeless to compete with us on training foundation models. You shouldn't try, and it's your job to like try anyway. And I believe both of those things. I think it is pretty hopeless, but.
My name is Ajay Chaudhary, and I founded HCL. The question I want to ask is, Ray Kurzweil and others have been talking about, achieving singularity in, let's say, year 2045. With the kind of exponential growth that your products are going to do, is it going to be a much earlier than 2045, and what's your estimate?
Sandini, you want to go first?
I can take that question maybe for Sam. So I'd say timelines, that's something we discuss a lot at OpenAI. Different people tend to have different timelines for like when they think that'll happen. I think the thing that you're mentioning around like singularity though, and some of these sort of more existential risks and like existential opportunities even perhaps, where I think right now where we are and where we really need to think about is like, how do we really measure it? How do we really evaluate it? So we're in a place where we don't even have that right now. So I think that's the starting point when we can maybe start to get some more structure around these abstract ideas. But in terms of timelines, people can have their own sort of estimates, and that can really vary a lot.
I think we're getting close enough that the definition of the term really matters a lot, and people do have very different definitions. What I would say is we need to plan for a world in which 10 years from now, we have something that is like a very meaningful contribution to all of the cognitive ability of human civilization. Maybe as much, maybe more, maybe less, but an important fraction. And, singularity or not, that is a very different world.
Kunal. Yeah. Mike? Oh.
Hi.
Sorry, okay, Prasoon, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Prasoon. I'm a creative professional. I was just thinking while you were talking, and I think a lot of new thoughts coming to my head. One of the questions I have is that, there is something called creative satisfaction to an individual with the creation, the tactile sense of it. And if the distance and degree of separation starts increasing and the tool becomes so overpowering that it takes away the belonging to the product, it can happen to any job actually, that the one who's doing the job sees himself or herself very distant from it completely, and it almost the creation creating itself. So what happens to this individual satisfaction which is related to jobs or creation or any of these things? Would it become self-sufficient in its own way, and then the tool overpowers you?
I think what happens when you give people better tools is they do better things. They do more impressive things. The floor lifts up, the expectations lift up, and if I feel very lucky and like very grateful to all of humanity. All of humanity that's come before me. Everyone's built the things that I use, but I would not be able to do what I do, and neither would anybody else in this room, without a gigantic tech tree of technology and better tools. But without the transistor, without the operating systems that people figure out how to do, without all of the work that enabled for the next step, without airplanes that let me come here and talk to you, none of this would happen. And so we build better and better tools that abstract more and more, but we still find quite a lot of fulfillment, and we operate at higher and higher levels. And I think that's just going to keep going. I think human creativity, the desire for status, fulfillment from work, wanting to contribute useful things back to the world so other people someday get to build on our stuff, that's not going anywhere. The sort of expectations are just going to go up.
I think Kunal had raised his
Sam, two-part questions. You can choose to answer one or both. What have you, after doing AI for so long, what have you learned about humans? And what do you think is your understanding of humans after doing AI? And if you could be in trenches and build 4 more companies, what would these companies look like?
What have you learned about humans, so I can think about it for longer?
Sorry, Sam?
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I can go first.
That's the amount of time.
Man. So one is I grew up implicitly thinking that intelligence was this like really special human thing and kind of somewhat magical. And I now think that it's sort of a fundamental property of matter. And that's definitely a change to my worldview. I think kind of like the history of scientific discovery is that humans are less and less at the center. We used to think that like sun rotated around us, and then maybe at least we were, if not that, we were like going to be the center of the galaxy, and there wasn't this big universe, and then multiverse like really is kind of weird and depressing. And if intelligence is special, like again, we're just like further and further away from like the main character energy. But that's all right. That's sort of like a nice thing to realize, actually. I feel like I have learned something deep, but I'm having a hard time putting it into words. But it's like something about it, even if like humans aren't special in terms of intelligence, we are incredibly important. I won't have the consciousness debate here, but like, I think there's something strange and very important going on with humans, and I really deeply hope we preserve all of that. The second part was like 4 other companies I would start. I think I would just like pick the verticals that I felt I knew the best and think about how AI could revolutionize them. So maybe the meta answer is I should be like thinking about how you use AI to make a better, faster AI company.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Can we get people from the back? Yeah, VC.
I've got many questions. I didn't want to take over from the incredibly handsome guy in the room, but many questions. One is, I really liked what you said in Abu Dhabi. I've been reading about your various speeches around the world. That seemed the most important, about it being regulated like atomic energy. So could you explain that more? Because that seems extremely important to regulate. Harari has been making negative remarks or cautions about AI. Mainly what I've understood, he says, think of AI in the worst politician that you have in mind. He obviously meant, without naming, the typical warring dictators. The next question is, are you able to share what you had a conversation with the Prime Minister? And coming to human aspects, I had the great opportunity of also meeting Kurzweil at Google. And the most incredible thing he said, and it stayed with me, please explain that. I met him 8 years ago, and even then he said, we're able, through AI, to make classical music equal or better than the greatest masters. The frontier will be when we make AI or robots capable of love. He was very serious about this. And I haven't read much about this, as if it was his own personal passion. Has this aspect of humanity, which I hope competes with intelligence as an aspect of man, progressed? That AI will make something like a robot capable of greater love than man and dog, man and wife, father and son. Is that progressing?
So on the IAEA, basically we think, and we're not sure if this is the best answer, we're kind of contributing one idea of many good ones to the global conversation. In the same way that we say, nuclear materials provide some real danger, some real benefits, but they affect all of us. They affect the globe. Let's have a system in place so that we can audit people who are doing it. We can license it. We can have safety tests you have to pass as you're training these systems before you deploy them. There's visibility for regulators. I think that's an important idea. We have been very pleasantly surprised by how much enthusiasm there is for it from around the world. And, maybe someone has a better idea, which would be great. I had dinner with Harari a couple of nights ago. We talked about this in Tel Aviv. I do think there's a lot of like very sci-fi concerns that are pretty far out there and probably will turn out to be quite wrong. But this idea of misuse by a dictator using it to oppress people is a very scary thing, and that's not super far away. So I think we need to, and we spend a lot of time at OpenAI thinking about this, I think we need to build these systems in a way to address that risk. And I think it's going to be a very complicated global geopolitical challenge. The Prime Minister, we're going to see tomorrow. Schedules got shifted around, but really looking forward to doing that. And I hope that we don't all fall in love with robots. That would be deeply depressing. What I hope happens is we are all the best versions of ourselves. We all can like figure out how to be better. These systems can like help us as coaches, as maybe like therapists in the future, as sort of like guides and assistants, and make us more present for each other and treat each other better. And I really believe that can happen. But the like all fall in love with the robot thing, I'm okay with the good classical music. I don't really want that future personally. What do you think?
I think on that, I'd also say it fundamentally gets to some questions about like what you believe AI can and can't do. I think it's still a debate whether AI models can feel emotions either now or ever. So definitely not settled. Will again play into how we even measure things like that. So definitely an ongoing conversation right now.
Yeah, Alessandro?
Yeah. Sam, Alessandro from SDA Bocconi School of Management, the Asia Center. Education. So you talked about education, and indeed it has already is helping a lot. But I'm looking at it from the other side. You said that it will generate a lot of new jobs. We will all be more productive and gather different jobs under ourselves. So what do you think are the skills that we should be teaching for the future future managers to nicely manage this GAI? In order, like right now we are teaching about leadership, about strategy. Would it be something like psychology, design thinking, or a mix of everything?
Santini probably has a better answer on this one than me.
I'll just add to that. There has been a lot of concern raised about ChatGPT becoming like a therapist for a lot of people. And while it is fine at a very basic level, there have been questions about and concerns about.
Yeah, I think one thing that I'll add to that, and then I'll take that question as well, is we actually also in the democratic call for AI inputs have asked that as a question, like should AI models offer emotional support or like psychological help to humans? I think that's an open space and society needs to decide what role AI will play. But I think to that question, I think many of the skills you mentioned, why they're unique is because I think they play into this fundamental aspect of like people skills, EQ, and like long-term planning and long-term strategy. These are three things that I'd say right now AI models, unclear where the growth is and unclear how and when they're going to get there. So those three things I think are like perhaps the key things to focus on right now. These aspects which feel fundamentally human because they rely on these things around EQ, human connection, sort of understanding people. So those areas might be some good areas to focus on.
Yeah, just one question to Sam. I think in April sometime, you had said that OpenAI would start training GPT-5, but you stalled it because of concerns raised by Elon Musk and others.
No.
And it's been a few months, so.
No, I didn't say we were going to start training GPT-5, and I didn't say anything in response to Elon. There was a letter that some people signed. We didn't. People asked us, "Are you currently training GPT-5?" And we said, "No, we're not current." Again, per my earlier statement, we just kind of say what we're doing. We're not training it, so we said we weren't. That's all.
But what's your stand?
But it was not like we were started and then that letter came out and we stopped.
But is it happening anytime soon? Training of.
We have a lot of work to do before we're ready to go start that model. Like these things take a long time. You can see how long it took us between GPT-3 and GPT-4. This is like, it's not like you just like push a button and say, okay, today we launched GPT-5. it takes hundreds of people and a lot of research that happens on somewhat unpredictable timelines. So we're working on the new ideas that we think we need for it, but we're certainly not close to ready to start.
And what's your stand on Elon and a bunch of others writing letters wanting to stop any sort of progress to be made on AI?
I think a better framework is external audits, red teaming, safety tests. When we finished GPT-4, it took us more than 6 months until we were ready to release it. Your team did a lot of work on it, so did many other teams, to get ready to be confident that we could put something out that was safe. But 6 months would not have been a magic number, and we weren't going to put it out until we were ready. And this was a lot of internal work, external work. Future systems may take longer, they may take less long. What I think matters is a set of safety standards and a process to ensure compliance with those. Because otherwise, like, you stop for 6 months and then how do you know if you made enough safety progress?
But you're not committing to a date.
To a what?
To a date.
For the next?
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you. It's research doesn't work on a calendar.
We'll get more questions in. Okay, I think. Yeah, okay.
I'm Raju Kanoria. I'm a businessman. My question to you is that how do you make ethical choices when it comes to using AI? And one example is obviously in case you're involved in an accident in a self-driving car or in a situation which can cause an accident, or for that matter, what you mentioned about medical science, that, in the use of medical science, you can come up with different ideas on how to deal with the disease. But when it comes to ethical choices, how do you think AI will play out in the future?
You want to go first or you want me to go first? All right. I think the main thing that I would say, we could talk about any of those specific examples, but the main thing I would say is those aren't OpenAI's decisions to make. We really want to figure out a way that we engage with society and that we democratize the decision making on these trade-offs. So the projects we've launched recently, the funding that we've provided, it's to figure out a way to get the global value system and the moral preferences of people to decide what these systems do. We could go off and make those, and it's very interesting to think about them, and we have our own opinions, but it shouldn't be up to OpenAI to decide. And one of the things that I think is so cool about this technology that's different from anything that's come before is this is a technology that can actually learn the collective preferences of the world for decisions like that.
Should we take a few more questions, Sam? Yeah.
I have the mic here. Should I go?
Yeah, Swati.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Swati. I'm the co-founder of Cash Karo. We are in the performance marketing space. Firstly, thank you so much, Sam, for sharing everything so generously and being so transparent about everything. I would personally love to know a little bit more about the company culture you've built as an entrepreneur at OpenAI, because it's not just you who's inspired, it's your entire team that is building, creating something that doesn't exist today. So how did you inspire others as well in your team?
You should take that one. That's hard for me to.
Yeah, I think I can answer something about the company culture. What you're seeing right now here on the transparency around sort of setting this vision and being very open at the company, that's something we actually have at OpenAI. Something that's really good about the company is how all teams can come together and really work together on big ideas together. That requires collaboration, that requires sharing ideas, that requires not being territorial about work and kind of collaborating in this manner. I think that's what the company is really good at, and that's something that I think Sam and others have sort of set from the get-go. I think something else that's really good about the company is no idea is a bad idea. So no matter how crazy your idea might be, or how sort of far out or how sort of ridiculous it may sound in the beginning, people always hear you out, people always engage. So this sort of appetite for always having a discussion is also something that's really good about the company.
The two other things I was thinking about, we really care about talent density. So I think a lot of companies have talented people, but if you have like even a few mediocre people mixed in through there, they kind of like act like the neutron absorbers and stuff just goes wrong. So we really try to have like extreme talent density. And the trade-off of that is we don't have that many people relative to what we do. And so we really try to be focused. Like GPT-4 was a whole company effort. We could not have gone and done 3 other things at the same time.
Yeah, somewhere there.
Here.
Okay.
So I'm Rohit. I work for Government of India. I'm Secretary to Government of India, and we like assistance. So I asked ChatGPT at 5 p.m. that I'm meeting Sam. What should I ask him? And you know, the responses that I got were so easy. So I think the hypothesis that it is biased is totally confirmed. But jokes apart, there are concerns about energy consumption in large language models. And just like the crypto thing, do you think for quick adoption in public spaces like the Indian government, the lightweight AI, is that the way forward? Of course, there is the issues on accuracy, and so what are your views on lightweight AI? And since you also talked about nuclear fusion, I think the energy consumption is at the back of your mind for LLMs.
Yeah, I think this energy conversation about LLMs has become a real sideshow. These current models are just not consuming a material amount of energy compared to anything else. I don't understand why it's become such a topic of debate. I think it is important in the long term. If we really keep scaling these models up, they will start to consume lots of energy, but we'll need to be on fusion or renewables or something like that anyway by that point. Just to get enough energy. So I don't know how this has become such a meme, but I don't think it is a material factor. I think you can certainly use small models for some tasks, but on the whole, I think you kind of want to use the best intelligence you can unless there's a good reason not to. And, you know, like, we always want to make AI way cheaper and way more available and way smarter, and Fusion will certainly help us do that. So that's I think why we're excited about it.
We have another 10 minutes. Treyan from Axel. Okay. Okay.
Sorry to come in again. It's a conversation, so I took the liberty. You said about AI not wanting to be human or not competing with human, perhaps. That's the hint I got. Not to take over. But just like AI will take over jobs, because AI will do it better than, say, the truck driver. So similarly, when you say human, the first thing we know about humans is it's human to make mistakes. It's human being he errs. To err is human. So all we have to do is to make AI human, all the qualities of a conversation, but it does not err. So we have always told our beloved, mother, wife, daughter, I love you. But, just this one aspect of you, it really riles me. It's difficult to believe that everybody in the room hasn't said that to a beloved. So this AI robot will displace your most beloved person by having a much better conversation with you without error. And what you find irksome about the lover, you can program it to not make that mistake, and therefore you will get the perfect lover.
Do you want that?
No. It's in technology, I'm a neophyte. I haven't been the first mover. I'm a late follower. So that's how it'll go.
Look, first of all, I think this question of whether AI is a tool or a creature is something that really confuses people. And it confused me for a while, too. But I now think we are very much building a tool and not a creature. And I'm very happy about that. And I think we should and will continue in that direction. On the question of mistakes and errors, I believe that creativity and certainly the creation of new knowledge is very difficult / maybe impossible without the ability to make errors and come up with bad ideas. And so if you made a system that was certain to never tell you, to never say something that it wasn't absolutely sure was a fact, I think you would lose some creativity in that process. And I think one of the reasons that people don't like ChatGPT is because it hallucinates and makes stuff up. But one of the reasons they do like it is because it can be creative. And what we want is a system that can be creative when you want, which means, you know, sometimes being wrong or saying something you're not sure about or experimenting with a new idea. And then when you want accuracy, you get accuracy. So I think there's something there. Yeah, you know, if people want like and some people clearly do, if people want to chat with the like perfect companionship bot that never upsets you and doesn't do that one thing that irks you, you can have that. And I think it'll be deeply unfulfilling and a sort of hard thing to feel love for. I think there's like something about watching someone screw up and grow and, you know, like express their imperfections that's the very deep heart of love as I understand it. And I think like humans care about other humans and humans care about what other humans do in a very deep way. So that, you know, that like perfect lover chatbot doesn't sound so compelling to me. Want to add anything? All right.
Yeah.
Sam. Yeah.
Hi, Sam.
Okay, I just wanted someone at the back because they tend to get ignored.
All right, Sam, hi. This is Manish Ghailod. I'm the CTO.
Could you just be a bit louder?
Oh, this is Manish Ghailod. I'm the CTO of TCW. We're an asset manager in LA. So my question is, we are fully expecting ChatGPT to have a monumental impact in the composition of organizations. So as we start planning for the future, as we start working towards a target state organization, and you can use technology as an example, how best do we create a target state organization so we have a soft landing?
So we have what?
A soft landing.
Oh. I think just like a rapid adoption of the tools and a tight feedback loop for what to do with them. It's too hard to predict the future. We say this at OpenAI all the time. It's too hard to predict the future. A tight feedback loop is how we manage through it. And we just try something, we observe, we correct, and do that again and again and again. And I think the world is going to reward adaptability and speed and resilience like more than ever before because the rate of change will be so fast.
Sam, great to hear your views about AI. I'm curious to hear your views about energy as well. So, per what the models suggest, the energy consumption and reliance on fossil fuels as of 20 years ago and today is largely the same. And we have this great revolution in AI, which will, you know, hopefully revolutionize a lot of things. But I'm curious to hear your views on Helion and your view on what the next ChatGPT for quote-unquote energy would be.
I don't know quite what ChatGPT for energy means, but I think if we get fusion to work and number one, we can have the cost of it be like less than 1/10 of current energy. And number two, we can manufacture enough generators for like the whole planet in 10 years. Then that's great. Now, of course, if you drop the price that much, the demand will go up. I don't know how much, but a lot. So we'll have to make even more, but we'll figure that out as we go. And if we can just start with replacing all baseload, that's pretty good.
Yeah, just I'm curious, what is your biggest fear? If you yourself said it could either go completely big or go wrong, what is your biggest fear about AI?
I would like to hear Sandini's answer.
So honestly, my biggest answer right now, and I'll share in the 5-year time span, it is the economic displacement question. And I know my views here might differ from like many people at the company. I think the economic displacement question, for example, with the Industrial Revolution, when that happened, long term, it was great for the world, great for society, a lot of progress. But the immediate 50 years after the aftermath were really painful. So I think that's what we need to figure out. How do we manage this transition? How do we make it least painful for society? I think in order to do that, there's a lot of work that like governments, people have cut out for themselves. So I think that's what I'd say in the now is one of my biggest fears and worries. Sam?
I have a lot. I guess the thing that I lose the most sleep over is that we already have done something really bad. I don't think we have, but the hypothetical that we, by launching ChatGPT into the world, shot the industry out of a railgun, and we now don't get to have much impact anymore. And there's going to be an acceleration towards making these systems, which again I think will be used for tremendous good, and I think we're going to address all the problems. But maybe there's something in there that was really hard and complicated in a way we didn't understand, and we've now already kicked this off.
Yeah.
Srivatsa Krishna from the Indian Administrative Service. Great to see you again, Sam. The question I have, I think the smartest move you've done is to go to the regulators and say, regulate us. That's like saying, ask the sun to stop shining, because you're way ahead. And the audit you talk about of every node, of every server, of every network will require so much of energy, it's impossible for any regulator in the world to do. Point number one. Point number two, you often cite the IAEA. Most of the UN bodies are past their expiry date. If the UN had worked, Russia would have never invaded Ukraine. IAEA, many regard, is not a success, but actually a failure, because collective action among nations is very, very hard to bring about. So how did you think of this very smart move to get ahead of government? Because government always, almost always, regulates the lowest common denominator. It is not designed to do nuance. Thank you.
That's a very cynical take, and I really hope you're wrong. And surely the smartest thing we've done is like create magical intelligence in a computer, like rather than like go to Congress and ask for regulation. I think they're like, I hope, incomparable in terms of the impact or the impressiveness of them. But I totally disagree. I think the world can come together on important things. I think the UN is in bad shape for sure. I think IAEA is deeply imperfect. Let's go do something better. But those are the best analogies we have. And to say like, oh, the governments are just hopeless, so call for regulation is some sort of 4D chess move, it's just like not how we think. This is an existential risk. There's many ways to solve it. If the governments don't get their act together, we will try our hardest to get the companies to cooperate. But we can't control what every company does, and we'd at least like to ask for like the dream world. And if we can't have that, we'll get the companies that want to play ball together and do our best.
Hi.
We can take maybe a couple of more questions.
Hi, Sam. I heard Elon Musk talk about the origin of OpenAI and his role in it. And the argument he was making when he was talking about Microsoft's investment in OpenAI seemed to give the impression that he had an economic claim upon OpenAI of some sort, or that he was heading towards that. Is that completely off the charts?
Yeah, I don't really want to get into like an Elon food fight. I like the dude. I think he's like totally wrong about this stuff. He can sort of say whatever he wants, but I'm like proud of what we're doing, and I think we're going to make a positive contribution to the world, and I'll try to stay above all of that.
Hi. Hi, my name is Shrikant. I run an AI firm called Fractal. I read your the paper called Sparks of AGI, which was written by the Microsoft researchers in March, which is very interesting, and it already shows, GPT-4 already shows several clues that it's close to AGI. So my question to you is, what are some of the tests that you have internally to know that you're getting really close? Are there any tests, and can you share how you would test for that? And you already talked about the definitions and how AGI, there are several definitions, but what is the definition that you're working with, and what are some of the tests that you have to test that it is close?
Yeah, great question. I think this is one of the most important, like rarely asked questions about what are the right evals for what an AGI would be. First of all, that was not our paper, and I don't think we're particularly close. I don't think GPT-4 is particularly close. For me, the fundamental thing that GPT-4 can't do at all that an AGI could do is go figure something out. Go discover new knowledge. Go learn how to solve a new problem it's never seen before. Figure out that it needs to go do complicated planning, study some things in a particular order, build something, write some test code. And the tests that I'm interested in, the evals, are all around that ability. There's plenty of other things. You probably have different answers, but that's the one that for me would be like, all right, this is an AGI.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'll add to that is we've actually published pretty much every eval we ran on GPT-4. So they're there in the GPT-4 technical report and the system card. Some of the tests that Sam mentioned are currently more qualitative. So they're done by individual researchers running experiments on GPT-4. There's one under the ARC section that we've published, so should be possible to read about it as well.
Hi. Hey, Sam. Nitin Sharma, Antler. I have a question about AI with respect to Web3. You're also involved with WorldCoin. A while back, people were saying that AI is a force for centralization and Web3 will take it the other way. As someone involved on both sides, I'd love to get your take.
I think AI will be a force for decentralization in a very powerful way. I think whenever you can give people pretty democratic access to very powerful tools, it is a force for decentralization, and we're seeing this already with the API and with ChatGPT. So I also had a sort of like fear that AI was going to be a big force for centralization. I think without even like being explicit about this, my model was that like there was going to be one super intelligence in the sky that like, we better hope was good and liked us. And now what I think is it's much more like we all have like a bunch of systems that help us be more productive, and you use AI for one thing, I use it for another. You and I are both like way more capable than we were in the old world, but sort of still like doing our thing and amplifying our own will.
Just one last question.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Cavalier from Zepto. We're actually a YC and YC continuity company, so thank you for all of the work you've done before OpenAI as well. You had a conversation recently with Patrick Collison, and within that, the two of you discussed the problem of not enough founders working on high risk, high reward, very capital intensive, and over a long period, those types of companies and those types of problems. You talked briefly about giving a grant to 100 the smartest people.
I'm going to do it someday. I just need to get around to it. I think this is a really good idea.
Any other ideas in terms of how to solve for that?
I mean, I think there's like a lot of things one could do. And I think maybe the most important is just like I want to keep trying to deliver the message. I'm grateful to other people trying to deliver the message. Just talking about the importance of this and the feasibility of it, and that you actually can raise money and you can get people to work on it. And like, sure, they're going to it's a little bit harder to get started, and people it takes a long time and people get impatient. But it's the most fun thing to work on. And I think if we just can as a society, keep reinforcing that message that it is hard but possible, and maybe less hard than an easy startup, I think that's the way to do it.
So we're going to have to wrap this up, but Sam, are you going to be around?
Yeah,
Will you be
stick around for a little while.
So Sam's here. If you guys have more questions, you can come up to him. He's around for a bit. Yeah?
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Andy.